It's March 11th, 2004. Families are eating dinner when their evening sitcom abruptly cuts to an emergency news broadcast. The police issue a desperate, immediate directive. If you have pork in your fridge purchased from Robert Pickton's local farm, stop eating it and hand it over to the authorities. The authorities had just discovered that the commercial meat supply coming from the farm was laced with the ground remains of dozens of human beings. Entire neighborhoods realized they had unknowingly been consuming the exact same missing women their city had spent years desperately searching for. We have to look back to the 1990s. Vancouver was a city deep in crisis. Citizens were marching in the streets, protesting the disappearance of more than 50 women, while the police force seemingly stood by and watched. The man responsible for these disappearances was not a criminal genius. Robert Pickton was a wealthy, disorganized, and notoriously filthy pig farmer. He operated in plain sight for over a decade for a very specific reason. Pickton exploited a severe institutional blind spot, exclusively hunting victims the authorities had quietly classified as the less dead. Pickton grew up in an abusive, intensely unhygienic environment, surrounded by slaughter. When he was 12, he came home from school to find his beloved pet calf butchered and hanging from a hook alongside the commercial pigs. Despite eventually inheriting millions of dollars, Pickton chose to live in absolute squalor. He registered his property as a nonprofit and hosted massive, drug-fueled raves he called the Piggy Palace Good Time Society. These parties attracted women from Vancouver's downtown Eastside. Many were impoverished sex workers struggling with severe addiction. Sociologists and law enforcement often refer to this demographic as the less dead, people whose disappearances are routinely ignored by society. Pickton weaponized this indifference. He would drive down to the East Side, target these vulnerable women, and offer them cash and drugs to come back to his isolated property. He knew nobody would come looking for them. His ability to kill for so long had nothing to do with hiding his tracks. He simply found a demographic loophole, a group of citizens the local justice system actively refused to protect. That refusal became painfully obvious in March 1997. A woman named Wendy managed to escape Pickton's farm, running toward the highway naked, bleeding heavily from multiple stab wounds, and still wearing half a pair of handcuffs. She was rushed into surgery. Meanwhile, Pickton showed up at the exact same hospital to treat his own cuts. Hospital staff found the key to Wendy's handcuffs sitting right in his pocket. Police had the victim, the weapon, and the key. Yet Pickton was released on a $2,000 bail, and shortly after, the charges were dropped entirely. The authorities argued that Wendy's history as a sex worker and addict made her an unreliable witness. They looked at a bleeding survivor and decided her word wasn't worth a trial, handing a predator full legal immunity. Late in 1998, police received another massive tip. A farm employee named Bill Hiscox came forward. He explicitly told officers he had seen the IDs of missing women, purses, and bloody clothing sitting right inside Pickton's vehicles. A detective started building a case, but was quickly transferred to another department. The rest of the police force simply abandoned the lead and closed the inquiry. Ignoring this tip carried a massive cost. Over the next several years, dozens more women vanished, lured to the farm and murdered. During this window of silence, Pickton escalated his disposal methods, grinding his victims' bodies and mixing them into his commercial pork supply. Every single woman who died after the winter of 1998 was a direct, preventable casualty of profound institutional apathy. When Pickton was finally captured in 2002, the police weren't even looking for a serial killer. They raided his property purely on a tip about unregistered firearms. But while searching for guns, an officer stumbled across an asthma inhaler bearing the name of a missing woman. That routine search immediately exploded into a historic $70 million forensic excavation. Investigators methodically scooped and sifted through deep farm soil, cataloging millions of tiny human bone fragments mixed with animal remains. The government happily spent $70 million to dig these women out of the dirt, after spending absolutely nothing to protect them when they were alive and begging for help. In his holding cell, Pickton spoke to an undercover officer. He showed zero remorse, actively bragging that he was just one victim away from hitting a perfect 50. He was handed a life sentence with no chance of parole for decades, a run that finally ended in May 2024 when he was killed in a prison attack. Pickton's horrific, decade-long reign was not a testament to his intelligence. It was the inevitable byproduct of a completely broken system. When a society actively dehumanizes its most vulnerable citizens, that rot cannot be contained to the margins. Eventually, it bleeds outward, sometimes landing directly onto the dinner plates of the